everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely Monday afternoon. I hope you had a great weekend. This session is titled Lesson Design for eLearning, and we're focusing at the secondary level. With me today is Megan Damrell, the DIS at Dickinson, and we have Lynn Casnia, who is the DIS at Washington. And we're going to be taking you through some of our ideas for kind of an overall look at lesson design for effective strategies and effective e-learning. If you have any questions at any time, please put them in the chat, and we will be kind of making this a discussion-based session today. So just at any time, feel free to jump in there and write what you need, and we'll hopefully get it answered as soon as possible. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go, the right screen. So our lesson, or our objectives for our session today is talking about managing our time. With e-learning, we know that it's a whole different ball game, and so looking at how we are balancing our time and our students' time is going to be really important. We'll be focusing on preparation for lessons and how do we start to think about what it is that we would like to create, the experience we'd like to create for our students. And with that, we're going to talk about some really effective lesson frameworks that work very well in the e-learning and the remote learning environment. Lastly, we'll focus on some visual design because it is a very different experience for the viewer when they are on screen. And we'll finish it off with some multi-purpose tools because, as we know, the less new things that we can bring in and the more that we can reuse these tools, the better it is for our students and, of course, ourselves. So we're going to start with managing our time. We have a little interactive poll for you guys in the chat. After the first week, because we are now in our second week, how are we feeling about our overall lesson planning? Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Please be honest. So feel free to share how you're feeling. I know I have run this week, or last week, I should say, every single one of these emotions. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
We got a 3. Oh, okay.
We got a 2. There's one. Yeah, there's a couple of 2s in there. Lots of 3s.
Yeah, we're kind of all over the board, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. 4s.
Oh, there's a 1. I see a 1. Yeah. Right. So I see a lot of 2s and 3s, which, you know, that's awesome because if you are feeling like just really confused about the whole thing, then we are glad you're here. And those of you who are 2s, please engage with us in the chat and share your ideas. Okay, so I wanted to start with the idea of creating a time schedule for yourself. You know, we have in the secondary level anywhere from 7 to 8 periods. Some people have advisory. So there are a whole different range of schedules that we have at each of our schools. And our schools will be following the bell schedule. So, you know, if you are teaching somewhere that has 8 periods, you're not going to magically become a 7-period day. But kind of what I wanted to show with this timetable, and I'm going to, you know, kind of let Megan and Lynn jump in here as well, is how to blend this so that you're not sitting in front of the screen for 7 hours a day.
Yeah. Sarah, you want to take down the banner so they can see the whole slide?
Did that get, I'm so sorry. How did that get put in there? I must have clicked. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I would do it, but I don't.
Thanks. No. Hide it again. Yeah, there we go. Yay.
And Tara, one thing I think we want to make sure teachers understand is I think in the spring, we were kind of more so like, you know, teachers would schedule meets with students, but we weren't really on like a structured schedule. Yeah. So like some of our students and even some of the teachers kind of were, well, my students aren't checking in till noon, so I'm not going to start till noon. But this e-learning is set up like a traditional school day. So like we're going to be working on school hours 9 to 4.
Yeah.
And I know some of our kids won't be able to check in due to home circumstances and stuff like that. But like we as teachers, we have to recognize like at 4 o'clock, maybe you check your email once in the evening, but then you also need to give yourself that time to not be on your device. Please don't. I know a lot of us in the spring were on our devices
24/7
all day long.
All night, all day and all night.
We can't do that to ourselves again. So we really have to stick to school schedule, and that's what the kids are being told too. School is running from 9 until 4. So I think we have to recognize that is different than in the spring too, with managing our time.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, especially with, I mean, I know that in secondary, it's very different than elementary. And so I think as secondary teachers, you know, we really have to kind of start grouping those classes together. Like I gave on this sample, you know, 3 preps. That's kind of an average. Some people have 4 different classes they prep for. Some people have 1 or 2. But mixing that in, and so lumping those classes together and saying, okay, like if you can see where I have the live instructions, that's 3 hours of my day. That's half my day on a screen. Now I am available for the kids and I'm going to be working things in, but you know, we also have to think about what other teachers in the building are asking those kids to do. And so, you know, this is where communicating with your students and saying, what do your other classes look like, and reaching out to the teachers and making it a whole community effort. Because if all of a sudden every single teacher wants to have a live meet for those kids on Monday, but you only have 3 hours of your day on Monday, by the time they get to you in your 6th or 7th period, they're done. I mean, they're completely done. So I think those are conversations we also need to have with our fellow, you know, colleagues.
Yeah, definitely across grade levels. And then I wouldn't be surprised, like if some of the schools are not kind of creating plans as well across the board, so everyone can kind of.
And honestly, that's one of the things we've done here at Washington is, you know, certain days you have to have live instruction based on your content area, and then that way the kids are flipping back and forth. You know, like Monday, Wednesday, they're doing ELA blocks and social studies. Tuesdays and Thursdays is math and science blocks, and then alternating your specials times. It's just too much for the kids to have that much screen time.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And for the teachers as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. And for the teachers as well. I mean, so a schedule, a plan that's consistent is extremely helpful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, as we think about having that kind of organized, structured on-screen time and off-screen time, you know, how we're going to create that, we need to focus on our preparation. And so here are some things, you know, I know that lesson planning, we've been lesson planning. I mean, all of us, that's like our guidebook, our rule book, right? We couldn't live without a lesson plan, but it does change. It changes because we don't have that in-class face-to-face time, and time is very valuable, and you don't see them every single day. And so what we need to do is focus on how are we going to take the standards and these priority standards, and how are we going to make this the most relevant for students while making sure it's rigorous for students and meeting them with where they are and what they need. So here are some questions that we've kind of come up with, you know, this idea of starting with what's that big idea, like we normally would do, but then really focusing on how are learners going to demonstrate what they know, right? What are they going to create? We can't just ask them to, you know, spit out some information. They need to start creating something to show and demonstrate their mastery. Focusing on those priority standards, and then really taking time to like lessen that cognitive load. This is going to have to be a lot more purposeful, I think, than when we are in the classroom, because when we're in the classroom, we can see on their faces. It's too much. We know when they don't understand. And if we are planning for asynchronous time or self-paced learning, you know, we don't get to experience that struggle with them. They're at home struggling by themselves. So we have to kind of put on our student hat and say, where do I think I'm going to struggle, and where do we need to kind of break this down more?
And I think we have to be really conscious of being realistic with what can a student do on those days where I'm not meeting with them. What can a student do, or what can I ask of them that's not going to be so overwhelming that they're not going to want to engage with the lesson at all?
Right. Exactly. The last thing that we want, I mean, I know that was kind of some of those horrible experiences in the spring, was that students just left. It was too much and they just left, and we couldn't get a hold of them, and we can't have that, right? So, the IDOE is not allowing that, but then also, we can't continue to let students not be present and not learn. Mm-hmm. So, keeping that into consideration. And then also with that cognitive load, then thinking about, same thing with keeping a structure. What does this delivery look like? Are we blending the asynchronous and the synchronous? Are there on-screen and off-screen? Do the students know what tools they need to use? Are we having opportunities for student-to-student contact, where it's not just a one-way communication, where the teacher's not just, spitting out information, but those students get to respond and they get to collaborate? Because again, not being in the classroom, we really have to make space for that. Mm-hmm. So this is just a small template. I got this kind of grid plan from Sadie Lewis, and I will send you guys her link. But this idea of, breaking it down in a concept map almost, versus just our normal lesson plan where we typically write things out, but really focusing on like the flow of it. And so you start with, your concept or your topic, and then you think about that product and you break it down into your instruction and your content, and then writing where your format and your formative assessments and your feedback are going to be. And so everybody has their own lesson plan format, but this was kind of a nice visual that I wanted to share with everyone in case they did need some sort of template that kind of will take them down in a linear fashion through all these steps.
And Tara, this will be shared with everybody?
Yeah, this is available in the Canvas course. And so you will be able to link and get a copy of this presentation, and you'll be able to edit it and do all that stuff that you want to do. So if you would like to take this template, feel free. And that last part that, goes with design thinking is you create the learner experience. So each of these boxes indicates when a learner is going to interact with content and what are they going to do. So, this is how we normally think of lesson plans, but we really need to start mapping it out. So for some people who say, this is what I'm going to teach, and they know what that lesson plan looks like because they've done it and it's internalized, mm-hmm. in eLearning, it's best for us to really make sure that we are hitting all of those marks. I just included this in there. If you're more of a person who likes a mind map, it's really colorful, but if you kind of start to indicate, so some of these big bands right here will indicate how are students interacting with that content. So this is the content, but am I doing this synchronously through live instruction? Are we doing this asynchronously? Is there student-to-student feedback? What's going on? What tool are we using? So just kind of putting everything into one big place. Okay, so this is the bread and butter. So we have all this idea of preparation. We know that, we can sit and ponder, but how are we going to then produce this information? Okay, so some of the framework. So there's, probably hundreds of different ways that you can kind of engage with content. Some of the frameworks that we think is best for eLearning would be that 5E model, your inquiry-based learning, where students are asked to engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. Yeah. Of course, these are the Hyperdocs.
Hyperdocs is the best model there is out there for technology.
Yes, they are amazing. And what I love most about Hyperdocs, we typically see these for elementary, but there are a ton out there for secondary. And I did include the link for the landing page that includes a bunch of different examples.
And there's a Facebook page too that is awesome.
Yeah, the Facebook, if you're on Facebook, like their Facebook community has a ton of resources and people share out things all the time. That's a great one. But just searching whatever topic it is and Hyperdoc with it in Google, you would get what you can find. And, you know, most people are willing to share as long as you give credit where credit is due, and then you can tweak things to where they fit 100% the way you want them to be.
Yeah, I'll show you just this page right here. And what's awesome is once you kind of jump into the Hyperdocs community, their whole idea is to share. And so people just put things on there that they've used and they've tweaked. So my computer, I'm so sorry guys, my computer's being very slow today. I'm sure most of you guys have experienced that. But you'll see right here that we have, you know, it's kind of sectioned out by content area, and you can go through here. And if it's not necessarily your level, then take the idea of that template and bring it to the level you need.
Yes.
So there's also on the Hyperdocs website, there's just that sample blank kind of basic Hyperdoc template, and it just has engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate, all ready to go. You just fill in the blank. I also wanted to show you guys this really cool website that I stumbled upon if you are looking to use Hyperdocs or the 5E model. What this man has done on this website is taken the typical part or the parts and what we would be doing, but then how do you now translate that or transform that into an e-learning, you know, situation or environment. So for example, like explain, well, now we can do things like podcasting or vlogs or having kids create some sort of collaborative cloud-based project. So this is a really fun kind of cheat sheet that might be of interest to you. And also, Megan, if you want to, this is that guide that you had found. If you want to explain that.
So if you, Tara, will you click on it? That's just a guide. I actually found that over the weekend on this Hyperdoc community on Facebook, and it's actually a guide for parents, and kind of explains, dives deeper into what each of those parts are of a Hyperdoc, and kind of gives an explanation to to a parent so they understand like what their student is actually doing. But it's just got good information for the teacher as well if you're trying to figure out what exactly are those pieces you know, supposed to be. And so it kind of gives some of those just a little bit more in depth, and also kind of gives some ideas and things throughout there. So it's just a good little resource to kind of glance through that I came across in that community for parents, but I think it's great for teachers as well.
And I think it's great that it has all these little helpful kind of like, oh, use a meme, use a quote, right? So all these little tidbits.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things too, like with those Hyperdocs, I think sometimes just recognize like those take multiple days.
Yes.
It could take multiple days, right? So like that's important. Like you're not making one of those a day every day because, oh my goodness. And there are certain parts of it that lean more towards the asynchronous than the synchronous, right? Like that engage, which might just be you're trying to get that some background knowledge, get them thinking, showing them a picture, a video, like what is this? What do you think this is about? And then certain parts more so like the explain, that might need to be a synchronous meet with the teachers. Yeah. That's the day we're going to go through this part of that Hyperdoc together as a class, and we're going to talk about this together. So those Hyperdocs also naturally blend to that asynchronous and synchronous time frame that we want to build into our schedule with our students.
And I also, you know, when we think about creating lessons, you know, we can't have this Google Classroom that is inundated with daily assignments and like overloaded. So, you know, having something like a Hyperdoc where it's one document, but you're working with it for 5, you know, 7, 9, however many days you're working with it, that student is just going back to that one assignment. And so they're doing all that work, but it's a lot more organized. It's easier for them to follow. And also, you know, we need to think about the product, and it's okay to have multi-day, you know, documents and lessons that these kids are taking a week to get done, because what you're asking them to do is getting down deeper, and that's bringing the rigor in. The other thing that we have is the gradual release model. So this would fit really well with a blended environment with the I do, and we do, and the you do. So that template that we have shared, this was shared with the eLearning for inclement weather, but it's still a super valuable template because it will help you organize this, I do, we do, you do format if you're not accustomed to it. So, here it kind of takes you through the steps where you would insert your video and you'd give your instruction. And then those are the things that you would be doing synchronously. And in the you do section, students are going to then not be live and working on their own. So that does exist as well for you guys to use as a template. The other two frameworks that we find of value is, of course, looking at the depth of knowledge. So web depth of knowledge, we have to work through all the different stages. And it, again, fits very nicely with a multi-day assignment, a lesson, because you're taking them just like a Hyperdoc from that recall and that reproduction, that kind of lower depth of knowledge, all the way into extended thinking. And that's when you can weave in, different standards, and you can really focus on getting students to create and engage and get that rigor and get, that understanding that they really need. The link, I'm not going to open it up, but Ditch That Textbook, Matt Miller has a phenomenal page dedicated to this. So by all means, please go and check that out. And then, of course, we have our favorite.
Protocols.
The ID protocols. Lynn, why are ID protocols so great?
Because they cover everything. I mean, I'm old, so Marzano is like, my research-based how to do things and how students learn best. And Edu Protocols covers all that Marzano stuff. It's got summarizing and note-taking, critical thinking, organizational webs, and it's the same routine. They just apply it to different topics and different subjects, and it's fabulous, and it's interactive, and they're collaborating together, they're communicating. It's just wish I would have had when I was actually still teaching. I was like, darn it, I missed out.
I know. So I was lucky enough to start bringing these into my classroom. And, I'm a high energy teacher. So for me, it was great because my kids were just as excited as I was. So instead of me being the one who's like, hey, everybody, look over here, let's get excited. When we started using the protocols, they would get excited because sometimes
they're doing the work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing it, they are.
Right. And again, you guys have had the opportunity to listen to John Cripple or Marlena, they say, you need to it's working smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
And that your kids will know what to do. And I think that that's really valuable when we think about remote learning. Instead of me typing out a paragraph for them to read instructions, if I say to them, after I've taught it to them, hey guys, we're going to do an Iron Chef about irony.
Yep.
The kids would be like, oh, I know what an Iron Chef is. Okay, great. I didn't have to spend 3 hours typing up your directions and, making visuals and trying to explain everything, because I taught them how to do that. And so now they're focusing on that content piece that I need to focus on, not the task that we're doing.
And I think those, they were shared last week. I think Allison shared the Smart Start. So they have, they put together that Smart Start where if you're not familiar with some of these things, they have directions, and, it's, for some of these, it's just that willingness this is a great week to try some of these things with your classes in these 20-minute little blocks. And, some of it is just, be willing to just put it out there. So let's,
and you've got other people in your grade levels and your departments. Talk to each other, collaborate. Say, hey, what do you think about trying to do this cyber sandwich? Do you think we could do this together? Work it out and work together. Once again,
co-plan. Co-plan. If I knew that someone was teaching the same class as me right now, I would be buddying with them and saying, let's create lessons and let's do this together and save time. And then also, we know our kids are getting that same excellent content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not stressed out.
Yeah. All those, all your 7th grade math teachers, all your 7th grade English teachers, grade level teachers, you all have those same goals in mind. Your kids are different, but the goals are the same, right? Because those goals are technically set by the curriculum, right? And what they need to be successful at the next level. So, work together and don't feel like you're an island and you have to do everything on your own, because that's just not true. Plan with those individuals.
Most definitely. And I will say, like Lynn said, the Smart Starts, it's never too late to start a Smart Start.
No.
Like, it's never too late to just hit the button and say, we're doing this now. Yeah. And, like Megan said, right now we're focusing on just relationships and getting kids used to routines and establishing norms and helping them through the tech that we're going to use. So a lot of these Smart Starts, if you weren't able to go to the presentation yet or view it, you can work in the SEL stuff. You don't have to be teaching content through something new right now. And that's really the power of them. You can teach anything using an EduProtocol.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just want to put this here. So this, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but this is floating around social media, and it is just a really great focus on the infographic, less on the graphic. So this is from Tori Trust, and it's been floating around. So what we have the link here for you, and then there's more that she has that's very interesting. So if you get a chance and are very busy schedules, I really recommend you clicking on this link right here and seeing what she has to say, because some of the things that she has, and very much in this format, it's quick, it's easy, it's digestible, are just, when you read them, you feel comforted, and you also feel empowered that we can do this. So as we, think about frameworks, we think about our level of instruction and what we're doing. We can't continue doing the same thing. So I love this instead of this that she has here, and then the try this, right? So instead of these long lectures, this idea of micro teaching or mini lessons, where you give the content in small pieces, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you focus on the most necessary. And that way, that students are not being lost in kind of all the other things that come up, but it's directed into the point.
Well, and just think about in regards to, like, if you're showing a video or you're talking to them, as teachers, we know how distracting it is when we have our device and we're engaging in something. And if something goes too long, we're opening tabs and we're doing this. Your kids are going to be the exact same. So, it really has to be like getting straight to the meat of what you're doing. And because, the attention spans for some of that longer engaged learning, especially for our younger middle school kids and things of that nature, they're not there yet.
No.
They're not there yet. So we have to.
I don't think anyone is.
No,
they can't do it.
We have to constantly keep them in mind. Like, if you find yourself zoning out, like with a video that you think you might show them, then they're going to zone out. So like, not the one to use.
It's also, I'm a big, huge outdoor nature girl, and this is the beautiful time in the Midwest. And so give them the opportunity to get off the screen and go outside. I mean, they're at home, right? They can go outside. Let them enjoy the beautiful weather and read something outside and not be on the screen, or, somehow do that so that they're taking those breaks. They're not getting that, like, eye fatigue, that 20-minute max. I mean, really, that's intense. Mm-hmm. So blending that in, if you're doing a 5-10 minute direct instruction micro lesson, mini lesson, then that gives those students all the rest of that time to then explore, create, engage in different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be 45 minutes of you on the screen. Okay, so before we get into this, I kind of want to go through some of the comments that have been coming up. There's something about cameras that I would like to take a moment to address.
Okay. Thank you, because I was going to stop.
Go for it, Lynn.
Just knowing our students, I would never make a student turn their camera on. There's just way too many reasons why they don't want their cameras on. And there may be a lot of things out there you don't want to see as a teacher.
Yeah.
If you're worried about having what your students look like, have them take a selfie and upload it to a Google slide. That way they can control the background. You can see what's going on. Do a FlipGrid where they just do the screenshot, but I would not make them do live camera feeds at all.
Yeah, no, we do have to be mindful of, especially we have a lot of, Title I kids, and we know that they may just not be comfortable with that. So, I don't think it's necessarily bad to encourage them to maybe change their profile pic to their picture of themselves. So at least when you're looking at the screen, you don't see just a bunch of letters. If they don't want to do maybe their profile picture, because especially our middle school kids, they're like at that most self-conscious type of stage. Then maybe it's like most of them have Bitmojis because they have Snapchat. Maybe it's their Bitmoji. It might not be 100% them, but at least it helps you kind of get an idea of a face with a name.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would say this, for those of you who are talking about assigning points to it or extra credit, that's not an equitable practice.
No.
So if you are equating cameras on with any kind of point value, whether it be for the class or extra credit, please do not. There is no requirement in our guidelines that says that students have to turn on their camera.
Correct.
We have said that the students communicate with the teacher. There is not a requirement whatsoever. And just like Lynn and Megan said, have them update their profile picture so that it's their face, or they could, if they wanted to do a Bitmoji, but have those conversations with them about, are you comfortable or not comfortable? Don't ask them, you don't have to get into the nitty gritty of why they're not comfortable, right? That's too much. Just say, okay, I get it. But please stop the practice of assigning any kind of point or extra credit point to camera use. The other thing would be, about muting mics. So I have a kindergartner, and, so we're getting her used to the idea of talking and muting her mic, right? So that way all those noises in the background are not affecting other learners. And so that's another thing too, right? When you think about not just camera, but then also the sound that goes on, we don't know what is going on in our home life, making them turn on their mics is not a very great, practice for other students as well. So like teaching them how to like mute and then unmute and kind of walking into the Google Meet with their mic muted and their camera off is just good etiquette.
And we have kids who are, in programs around the community with like the Boys and Girls Club or the Croc Center and things. So they might be in a room with 20 other kids who are on their own meetings at the same time. And like that kind of sound could be very distracting.
Yes. Yeah. And so those of you who are talking about the Bitmojis, it will be blocked on their school computer, but the kids know ways around it. Most of them have cell phones.
And even do it on their cell phone.
Yeah.
So
and then they can upload their picture or do whatever they need to do. Yeah. Okay. So, it's kind of a nice segue. So we're talking about screen time, and we're talking about, what our brains do. And there's a whole world of research about, reading on screen and what happens to our brains when we're on the screen all the time. But when we think about visual design, it's extremely important in everything that we do. Lesson design and visual design go hand in hand. But now more than ever, we need to think about what kids are seeing on the screen. So I tried my best with this presentation to kind of mimic the idea of meaningful images, enough white space to not have it overloaded with text. And there's some 7 tips for visual design, right? And so these are the big ones. It's about colors, it's about images, and it's about white space. So instead of overloading the screen with words and big long paragraphs, breaking that up throwing an image in, and then allowing, maybe you embed a video into your slideshow that will explain that big long paragraph. Sadie Lewis is one of my ed tech heroes, but she is a instructional designer, and so she has a really great little one-pager when it comes to visual designs that you guys could check out. But I wanted to show you the difference between two lesson plans that were created that are anchor docs. They're multi-day. Let's see if this one will open up too. Okay. And to toggle between these two, once they load, I want you to think about some of the 7 designs. So the 7 designs are meaningful images, a distraction-free template, white space, breaking up the content, colors, and consistency. And so, you know, feel free to add in the chat where you think the violations might be, or where you think maybe these look great. Let's see if they load. Here we go. Okay, so some of you guys have seen this before. I took this sample that I had created of an anchor doc, where what it is basically just a Google Doc. You can do this in a Google Slide. I love Google Slides. They're my favorite to build and create in, but I did this as a doc because some people are more comfortable in docs. But what this does is it lays out the day of the week and then everything that's going on, and these big blue, right, hyperlinks are there for the kids. So it's all in one page. So I took this one and I applied to the best that I could, right, the 7 design template, or 7 designs. So you'll see the difference now. So what I've done now is remove some of that language that wasn't necessary. And it's a little bit more student friendly. I have icons. I've created a lot more white space. I have a template that allows for colors to be associated with days of the week. I have repeated my icons through there. So, you know, even something as simple as that can help kids engage with the learning. I mean, how a package is presented sometimes really does matter, compared to maybe some of your students who struggle with reading, or maybe some of your students who are lower, you know, like English language learners. They may not be at the 3s and 4s, they may be 1s and 2s. You know, this is too much. This is really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so those are things that we really need to take into consideration.
Well, and I think too, with the middle school kids, we do have to think a lot of them, you know, with our our juniors and seniors in high school, yeah, they're probably doing this for the most part completely on their own. But for our middle school kids, parents are still helping. And if a parent sees something like that and sees Monday and can see all the tasks, and Tuesday and can see all the tasks, then what they're supposed to do for that teacher makes sense. And it helps the parent be able to help their child as well. They may not know what all those tools are, but they at least know this is where I need to go and this is what needs to get done.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so perfect little segue for us, Megan. So here's the other thing is I am a big proponent of multi-purpose tools. I'm sure, you know, yeah, I can see Lynn in the screen. Yes. Yes. So, you know, take an inventory. So, you know, we're in the 2nd week. It's okay. Take an inventory. Write down the tools that you're going to use. Ask yourself, do your students know how to use them? Okay. Can I use them in multiple ways? Take stock. Just because you used, I don't know, I hate to talk badly, but just let's talk about Quizlet. I love Quizlet, but Quizlet wasn't working for me anymore. My life, or I guess the way that I taught changed. And so I set it aside and I didn't focus so much on Quizlet because I found quizzes, and quizzes was a more multi-purpose tool for me, and I could do many more things with it. And so it became a multi-purpose tool where Quizlet was really kind of used for my own teaching purposes and not necessarily how the students engaged with the content. So take stock, right? Sit back and sip on some coffee and say, do I need this? Do I love this, right? Clean out your closet.
Mm-hmm.
And so here are some of the multi-purpose tools. And again, Meg, Lynn, anyone else who is watching this, please like throw your favorites in the chat. But I am
slides. Slides is my go-to.
Yes,
multi-purpose.
If you see me using Google Docs, something's wrong with me. Nothing in Google Docs. Everything's in slides. And there's just so much I can do with Google Docs.
They're a lot easier to manipulate as from the teacher standpoint to get in them what I want to put in them. They're a lot easier for me as the teacher. Sometimes when I try and do those things in Docs, I just become frustrated. So it's just so much easier to just work with it.
Change the size, and you can make Google Docs.
Well, I think, and that's the thing. Like some people know, and some people don't. You can make a Google slide into an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So anything that can be in a doc, can be in a slide, and anything.
And you can put the things in there so the kids can't move them and they can't delete them. It's like, oh yeah, you can go ahead and try, but it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And you can download it as a PDF with active links. It's like, yes.
Yeah, I used to build my syllabus with a Google slide, because that's how I prefer to make mine, because you want to throw images in there, you want to like put big borders around stuff, and like have the kids' eyes directed to it. You can do everything with it.
So the question was with Jamboard. So Tara, I know Jamboard's one of your new loves, so you explain it.
I love Jamboard right now. So Jamboard is really just an extreme. I mean, it's a digital whiteboard tool. That's all that it really is. But it can also do what Slides does in a very slimmed down way. So when you think about collaborating with a Google slide, a Jamboard could do the same thing. So you can't hyperlink and that kind of stuff like in it the same way, but you can add to a page. So you can have students drag and drop. You can have students add little Post-it notes or text. You could have them draw on a slide. And that's one thing too, for those of you who are looking for ways for students to draw, get them on a Jamboard and they can use the drawing tools, and they can, circle something. They could annotate text. They could underline, highlight. You can take a screenshot and add it to the Jamboard, and then they can highlight over it or circle over it, or write a reaction. There's lots of things you can do with Jamboard. So I would be happy to show you Jamboard. Your DIS and your building will be happy to show you Jamboard. And if you don't love slides yet, then please come find one of the three of us.
Yeah.
we will make you love slides.
Yeah.
The other thing is talking about FlipGrid. So, we need to get, I'm sorry. Yes, FlipGrid does have an app. So FlipGrid, for those of you who aren't using it, they've revamped a lot of things with the camera. So it is truly a multi-purpose tool. You can upload videos, you can draw, you can write, you can hold things up to the screen. It's not just about talking. But what I do love most about FlipGrid, for those of you that did participate in our blended learning FlipGrid activity, I can type feedback to all of you, or I could speak feedback to all of you. And that is a time saver when you have 150 kids, and you're trying to manage all of that.
Well, and the new whiteboard feature is great, especially for our math teachers, because they're always like, I want to see their work. So it's just a way like you can, assign them something, and then they can use that whiteboard feature, and it's still them and it's their recording, but it's not their face. Same thing with some of the filters that pixelate the students. They're like, well, I'm here, I'm doing it, but I'm just going to kind of make it to where I'm all fuzzy, and I'm going to put this giant emoji sticker over my head so you can actually see my face. And it's kind of one of those things where you have to be like, am I going to be mad at that, or am I going to be happy that they did it? I'm going to be happy that they did it. I don't care if I'm looking at a giant emoji head.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you can turn off you can turn on moderation. So you can turn off the student views. And I did this a lot. I had a group of students, and I would say probably at least 40% of them did not want to be on camera. They had no problem being in class, but there was some stuff going on and they did not want to be on camera. And I totally understood that. So I turned off the student-to-student views. And were sometimes when I would tell them, say, hey guys, this next one that you do, you have to respond and it's going to be viewed. Talk to me if you are not comfortable. And most of the time they were fine when they had fair warning, but I love turning that off and then just having it kind of be sometimes between me and the student as well.
Yes.
And it's great for, explaining your thinking, right? Versus reading a big, long student explanation. It's sometimes better to just hear them talk it out.
And I think we forget, actually, if you look at standard speaking, those are standards.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, every grade level has speaking standards. And for some of our students, that writing component, especially some of more of our bilingual kids, like that's a struggle. But if they can explain it to you, verbally, then you know that they have that concept. And that's that most important thing. We just want to make sure they're getting what they need and understand what they need.
Yes. Someone had asked, how do you get there? I have all of these links. So this one is linked so that you just click on there and you'll just go to flipgrid.com, really. And it's an external website, but it's very safe. It was created by teachers for teachers. They have an amazing staff that's constantly looking at education and what the regulations are. I mean, they're an amazing company. And if you send them a little shout out on Twitter, they will respond back to you.
And just like in other formats, they do have like FlipGrids and lessons that have already been created by other teachers that they've shared.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can
The community is huge.
Yeah,
and the blog,
find things that are there.
Yeah, I love their blog. Their blog has given me so many ideas. And it's real quick to read. It's not, super long. And then, of course, there's quizzes, which, we don't have time right now because we're getting to the end of our session. But quizzes, if you have not used the other question types, multiple choice or fill in the blank, please start.
They have like a whole order, like where you can put things out of order and you have to put them back in order. So if you're thinking about sequencing and things of that nature, number order, place values, all that kind of stuff. You can put those types of questions in as well.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's Padlet. So Padlet, now this is kind of one of those freemiums. You can only have a certain amount of Padlets, like, or boards open at a time. Go, Lynn. Yeah, 5. Okay.
5.
I know. It's so sad. But if you are kind of strategic about how you're using them, or if you wanted to purchase more, it's up to you. I kind of delete mine and, just kind of work with those 5 that I have. But I do want to give like a shout out to Maria Palma-Diaz, because she just shared a cool Padlet that she did to get her students engaged. And the question was, math is like, and then the students just exploded and it was amazing, So you can do things like within student-to-student engagement. You could have it be a landing page for resources. It's not just about putting posts and text up there, but you can do images. You can do, links to other sites. It can be a very powerful tool. You just have to kind of think about how you want to manipulate it.
As far as I know, there are no premium versions from the corporation on any of these. And someone was mentioning about math and math equations for which platform. Because if you're going with Google, I'm going to say you need to add the extension Equatio. But I'm not sure exactly what platform you're looking for those math symbols and things like that.
Yeah, we did purchase Equatio and Text Help. So those you should have access, and your students should have access to that full range of tools. But I would use Equatio or Equatio. I don't know if it's Equatio or Equatio.
Yeah, whatever. That's an extension for math that I use.
And we do have some divs who are gurus when it comes to that platform. Yeah. So if it's not me. I'm not the math one. So if you are looking for an amazing kind of one-on-one, everything you've ever wanted to know about Equatio, please reach out to your desk, because they know exactly who it is and they will put you in contact with the guru.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah. So just the things, we're at our time. Feel free to leave if you need to get your eyeball break. We'll stay on a little bit longer. But again, I really appreciate everyone who has joined us today and all of the sharing of your ideas. It's really great to see kind of this collaboration be built. So thank you. And then all of these resources will be available in Canvas.
Yes, Janet, the students can use Equatio. Yes.
Yeah.
We purchased it, so they got it.
Yeah. On their Chromebooks.
And then my last thing I would say is reach out to your curriculum teams and start thinking about when do you want to meet to start planning and start working together so you don't try and do everything all by yourself.
No.
Right.
Just reach out
and
start getting together.
And that's the beautiful thing about having access to an LMS, right? So with Google Classroom, create what we call the sandbox.
Yeah.
So create one Google Classroom, and then all you have to do is reuse the post, click make new copies, and you're done, right? So I mean, it's incredible.
And
yes,
then the slides will be in Canvas.
What?
Someone asked if the slides will be in Canvas, and yes. They will be.
Yep. But just remember, our goal is we don't want teachers to spend their entire day planning and finding resources. Work together, because what really is going to make the difference is your presence in that classroom and your feedback to those students. And that's where your time really is going to get the most, I guess, bang for your buck, if you want to use kind of use that expression. But that's what really is important, is students need that individualized. Oh, I'm so sorry. You mean hit that. That individualized time with you and that feedback with you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.